Thank you. When I started researching Lewis Carroll and his mathematical puzzles, I had no idea where it would lead me. And once I got familiar with his letters and his diaries and his pamphlets, I started to see that he infused mathematics into everything that he did. And I became aware that he was way ahead of his time, and if anything, way underappreciated where he was. In fact, historians, James Newman in his World of Mathematics said that Dodson was a mediocre mathematician who taught at Oxford for 27 years without brightening the hour of a single student or producing anything of lasting value to his subject. Jenny Wolfe wrote that he was too focused on rules and procedures. He was unattractive to his students, singularly dry and perfunctory manner, never betraying the slightest personal interest. And then we start to see what he did outside of the classroom. And I have to say, Manjul, thank you. You taught me a lot about cyclic numbers this morning, but there's a few things you left out. Because Carroll wrote a little pamphlet called Wise Words About Letter Writing. And in there, he put one rule. He said, don't repeat yourself. When once you have said your say fully and clearly on a certain point and have failed to convince your friend, drop the subject. To repeat your arguments all over again will simply lead to his doing the same, and so you will go on and on like a circulating decimal. Did you ever know a circulating decimal come to an end? It doesn't stop there. In his diaries, he makes references to the number repeating puzzle. He makes references to 142857, which we certainly heard a lot about this morning. And then he writes, in a proposal for a mathematical institute at Oxford, he writes, we should have a large room which might be darkened and fitted up with a magic lantern for the purpose of exhibiting circulating decimals in the act of circulation. Now, how's this for a dinner invitation? My dear Dorothy, I write to ask whether you are disengaged for next Saturday evening, and if so, whether I may fetch you at 6:30 to one of my grand dinner parties. Do not be alarmed by the number of the guests. It will be 0.99999, etc. It looks alarming, I grant, but circulating decimals lose much of their grandeur when reduced to vulgar fractions. Issa Bowman wrote him a letter, and she sent him millions of kisses. Here's his response. My own darling, it's all very well for you and Nellie and MC to unite in millions of hugs and kisses, but please consider the time it would occupy your poor old very busy uncle. Try hugging and kissing MC for a minute by the watch. I don't think you'll manage it more than 20 times a minute. Millions must mean 2 million at least, and 20 into 2 million, well, that's 100,000 minutes. Divided by 60, that's 1,600 hours. And divided by 12 hours a day, because I couldn't possibly hug and kiss you more than 12 hours a day, that's 138 days. Divide that by 6 days a week, because I wouldn't like to spend Sundays that way. So it would take us 23 weeks of hard work. Really, my dear child, I cannot spare the time. And then after that, he finishes the letter by writing, please give my kindest regards to your mother, and 1/2 of a kiss to Nellie, and 1/200th of a kiss to Emsy, and 1/2 millionth of a kiss for yourself. To Gertrude, he sends, I send you 7 kisses to last a week. And then he writes, Gertrude, I send you 4 3/4 kisses. Gertrude, I send you 10 million kisses and remain your loving friend. And then he even goes on in other letters to bring out some concepts that, oh my goodness, I wish that if you're familiar with the Common Core standards, he was way ahead of his time. Amy, I send 2 kisses and a half for you to divide with Agnes, Emily, and Godfrey. Mind you, divide them fairly. There's no end of love and kisses to Evie and Jesse. I'm afraid there's no use in saying, and the same for you, for if I never leave off kissing them, how in the world can I begin on you? Alice, I send my best love for you to divide with your brother, and I would advise you to give 2/3 to him and take 3/4 for yourself. Sydney, please give my love to Weenie and Vera and yourself. And don't forget the kiss to yourself. On the forehead is the best place. He would try to quantify things that, well, listen to this one. Edith, there is a rashness which I can only deplore in your assertion that I cannot be as fond of figure drawing as yourself. The point cannot be settled till we have measured the two fondnesses by the same unit. Now, the unit of pleasure, which I suggested years ago and which society hasn't yet adopted, is the pleasure felt in eating one penny bun in 1 minute. Please to estimate the pleasure which you get from an hour of figure drawing using that as a unit, and then we can compare numbers. My number is 235. Forgive me for reading these slides, but I can't match his language. Division by zero, let's see, he was the keeper of the wine cellar at Oxford. The consumption of Madeira has been during the past year 0. After careful calculation, I estimate that if this rate of consumption be steadily maintained, our present stock will last us an infinite number of years. We may cheer ourselves with the thought of how economically it can be done. And look at what he gives to his Oxford students. Here's a list of all the subjects. Here's one example of one of the exercises they had to do. And I'm going to finish now with 3 definitions from Euclid for how he made fun of parliamentary elections. Plain anger is the inclination of 2 voters to one another who meet together but whose views are not in the same direction. When a proctor meeting another proctor makes the votes on one side equal to those on the other, the feeling entertained by each side is called right anger. And of course, obtuse anger is that which is greater than right anger. Thank you, Martin, because I couldn't say these words any better than he did. Thank you, Martin, for this.